Star Trek Lower Decks has finally reached its conclusion. This is going to be my review of the 10th and final episode of the 5th and final season of Star Trek Lower Decks. It is entitled The New Next Generation. Whew! Can I just address that title? When I first clicked on this episode, I did not see the new part, so I just thought they called it The Next Generation. I thought, great, that's going to be complicated, because when you go and search Star Trek Lower Decks The Next Generation, you'll get Star Trek The Next Generation Lower Decks. They thankfully put new in there, but, it's a bit of a mouthful, but obviously they're riffing off of The Next Generation, and there's some secret bait in this show. 2 secret baits in this episode, actually, but let's begin with. So the episode opens with a recap of the seasons of events, with the rifts, with the Klingons, Malor and his brother. I forget his brother's name, and I don't even remember if Malor is which one Malor is. Regardless, we got a recap on them. We get a recap with everything that William Boimler got up to in the previous episode. We get all that, so it then comes in with Boimler getting that message and him panicking. There's also a scene where a bunch of Klingon ships, basically, which Malor, or was it Malor's brother, one of them, I gotta get them straight, killed her brothers because they attacked him. Anyhow, she's wanting revenge on him, too. But also, she's there when the rift arrives in this reality, I guess. And one of the ships turns into the Klingons from Discovery, which I thought was neat. It's suddenly implying that Discovery is taking place in an alternative reality, which, I do kind of support, because I feel like tone-wise and a bunch of stuff, it doesn't fit with the rest of Star Trek as we know it. But I haven't even watched it, so who am I to say? But anyhow, that's all the setup. And then, of course, when we're panicking, Mariner at least calms him down, and they go to Captain Freeman and Ransom and tell them, and she believes him, which takes them both by surprise, and then she goes to contact Starfleet Command. And because apparently the Enterprise, I love that, because, the Enterprise is always a ship that seems to be going into these life and death scenarios that's going to make or break the entire universe, or galaxy, or whatnot, is too far away. Now, they are on the way, but basically, you guys get to do it. The Enterprise is coming, but, we may not have much time, so you guys get to do it. Not our choice, but you're the closest. But that brings up something. Oftentimes in Star Trek The Next Generation, especially, the Enterprise is described as the closest ship to wherever the threat or phenomena is, so they're always set. But here I kind of like how you guys wouldn't be our first choice. We do want the Enterprise, because, they do this all the time, but they're too far away. You guys are much closer, so you guys get to handle it. I really loved how they did that and address how the Californian classes are still kind of looked down by Starfleet, even though, the husband of the captain of this very ship is in Starfleet Command. But anyhow, so they start modifying their shields to help prevent, the ships from changing from all the quantum energies or whatnot, whatever technobabble they use. That's not important. Essentially, they get a technobabble solution, but it's not perfect. The hull is causing problems. Uh-oh, that's not good. And then, of course, let's not forget the Klingons show up, and that adds a wrinkle that they don't have time to deal with right now. A fake message from Admiral Freeman by the Klingon captain, who's trying to get the other Klingons turned over to her so she can get her revenge. Why not? The one Klingon says, hey, come here, we'll solve it right now. That would have been the way to go, but it was a pretty pressing situation, and I'm sure Boimler probably would have thought of that if, he wasn't panicking over the universe being potentially destroyed with quantum alternate reality energies. But eventually they do get to the rift, and the ship does change every time it hits. Thankfully, that's not affecting the crew, because the shielding is protecting them, but because of the imperfections in the shielding, the ship is seeing change. So, first it changes to a one-cell ship, and Tendi's geeking out over how that would actually work, and Freeman's like, not now, we don't have time. And then a bunch of times, including to a Terran Empire version of the Cerritos. Which, Shaxs says, yes, we have weapons! And then, they're not working! I just love that scene there. Should I mention during all of this too the Klingons are not having fun, while the big Klingon ship does have the shielding, and probably had some of the same faults. The other ships not as much, but of course those ships aren't changing as much because they called them out, how Klingons barely changed their design, so yeah, the ships are not going to be changing too much. And apparently that's also true in alternative realities, even though we did see that Discovery call out in the prologue of the episode. But one of the Klingon ships gets turned into an old Klingon sailing barge. Yeah, that's not good for that crew. And then what's amazing, they get to a point where they're pretty much dead in the water and the Klingon captain's closing in. And so what do? Well, remember back a couple episodes ago with the episodes of Gods and Angles and the character Ollie? Well, they use her electrical powers to basically disable the Klingon ship's shields, and that allows, well, the ship doesn't change, but they change into minus proto-Klingons, as, the Klingons aboard the Cerritos describe, and yeah, the ship gets destroyed that way. But eventually, the Boimler has an insight, because throughout this episode, he was having trouble getting his implant to connect with Cerritos. No, that normally wasn't a trouble, but he figures it out during all where the ship keeps on changing. I mean, it changes from everything. They get a sovereign class, which Freeman's like, guess this will have to do. I just love that. Like, he's like, resign, like, oh great, a sovereign class. It's an upgrade in some regards, but sovereign, oh boof. I really wish we cut to them all complaining about that. I really wish, because they probably did. I think there was a Miranda, there was a bunch of different designs. The Galaxy class, I can't even remember them all. Eventually they returned back to the Cerritos. At first I saw Boimler, because when they returned back to the Cerritos, he got excited, happy. So I thought maybe it was an earlier state of the Cerritos that was more compatible with his implant. But I think all the changes made him, gave him time to think and realize what he needed to do. So he sacrificed his implant to help engineer on the Cerritos itself. So he literally pulled it off and said, not as finally as Shaxs did already in season 1, but he was able to basically use the alternative reality quantum energies to channel into the warp core to give the Cerritos more power, and that gives them more power. Granted, it could be very unpredictable now, but that includes the ship literally splitting into two different, basically superpositions. We're getting really quantum. This time we're actually talking about true quantum superposition, and that was a long time ago in school for me. I did not study that. That was gen ed stuff. But Tendi and Tallinn are able to basically, one, it resolves their conflict in this episode where, especially with being really overstressed, not being able to properly work together. Now that they're each split into, they're able to work together and get the Cerritos back together, get the quantum realities back, or quantum superpositions remerged. Technobabble and real science galore! Anyhow, they'll get to a point and they're finally able to start closing the rift, but it's too late. But the Klingons, so not the one who's the actual, farmer, so the brother of the Klingon we've seen the most. Again, I don't know if that's Molo. I think that one is Molo. I think. We should look this up. Oh well. Anyhow, he basically makes an insight about, sometimes you can't stop a flood, but you can build a dam. So they basically build a dam around this, and it turns into a stable gateway to alternative realities. And of course his brother's like, you actually listened to him? But it was right. They couldn't dissipate or destroy it, so they needed to contain and stabilize it. And they did. And then it cuts, and whew, this is definitely a pretty long epilogue in some regards, but it is so great. Where do I begin? Let's just begin with, we'll end with what's going on with our characters last. Well, not all our characters. So basically, there's a scene, it's amazing. You got I think a Sovereign, you got at least one or two more, Californias, a couple more ships, a bunch of Starfleet ships. They're obviously making sure it's probably stable and all that. And they're towing a Starbase there to basically, be there at the entrance, probably protect it and all that. And it's Starbase AD, because its old systems won't be affected by the technobabble stuff that this portal is, this wormhole through alternative realities is putting out because of their older systems. That is a nice callback there. And then, of course, it's established that Starfleet is going to be then using Starbase 80 as a stage point to explore these alternative realities. Why does that remind me of DS9 being the stage point to explore the Gamma Quadrant? That's totally intentional. Totally intentional. And there's even a Defiant class ship. Now, I don't know, and it sounds like they're going to be used to explore that ship. So, William Boimler, yeah, he's got a lot going for him now, and a pretty interesting crew, to say the least. Lots of Hurricanes, and also an alternate Mariner, too. I really wanted those two Mariners to meet. It would have been really interesting. Really interesting. But anyhow, so what it seems like is, So while the station commander from Starbase 80 is going to be in charge of Starbase 80, Captain Freeman is accepting a transfer to Starbase 80 to basically be the coordinator for all the exploration missions. She's moving off the Cerritos. She's the only character that does that, I want to say. But it's nice that they, at the end of the show, they're having one character move off. And yeah, it makes sense. She, advancing her career, and her crew's in good hands. And then also, too, what helps is that Admiral Freeman is also being assigned, though, probably to be the admiral in charge of it all. So that's nice. So she literally said part of the reason why she accepts that is because he's going to be there, which makes sense. Having a long-distance relationship in Starfleet is probably kind of hard. This will probably hopefully help the relationship. Granted, Admiral Freeman, he is not ready for what Starbase 80 is going to throw at him. The decontamination gel alone is that serious? Yeah. So, we're going to see how that turns out. And then, of course, a bunch of stuff goes on. So, we learn that Rutherford totally got rid of his implant. So, yeah. And, oh man, where to begin? So, Tendi comments that he looks handsome without it. She probably would have said it anyhow. But as he says, well, like he gets blush and he makes a comment without dopamine suppressors on. And then when Tendi goes to take his temperature, he freaks out. Yeah. And it also doesn't help that, might have been T'Lyn. One of the either T'Lyn, Mariner, or Boimler, I don't remember which one, I really should, mentions basically no romantic feelings, and he gets flustered. Yeah, he definitely does. He definitely gets flustered. I mean, I've always shipped Rutherford and Tendi, and this definitely confirms that at least Rutherford has feelings. And Tendi, she's probably much better control for emotions, especially because she, has practice. Rutherford, well, he gets everything flooding into him at once now, and probably remembering past stuff now too. So yeah, that probably doesn't help him processing his emotions right now. So definitely there's that. And of course, they're surprised that Mariner is behaving so professionally about her mother being transferred, and basically her very mature speech she gives. I won't quote it because there's a lot there. And then when they arrive on the bridge, guess what Mariner says? She says, yeah, I might have burned my mattress. So it does, and she mentioned something else too, and so she said, yeah, it's probably all out of my system now. I just thought that was hilarious, and apparently the mattress is still burning as they speak. I should also mention during the climax of this, Boimler actually destroys the pad from the alternative reality, mainly because he saw it was starting to get in the way of his friendship with Mariner and with, the Klingons, because the brother thought his brother was being hidden by Mariner. No, it was actually Ransom who did that to give Freeman some possible deniability, because he thought this message from Admiral Freeman was suspicious because it was faked by the Klingon. Whew. Yeah, I should have mentioned that earlier. Oh well. And then, of course, lastly, we figured out who's the new captain of Cerritos. It's Ransom. It was obviously going to be Ransom, but the next question is, who's going to be his first officer? So he decides to make both Mariner and Boimler provisional first officer. Then they're not happy about that at all. No siree. Well, one, because they're still only lieutenant and junior grades, and two, because he thinks he'll officially promote one of them at some point. They don't want to have competition, compete against each other at all. And Ransom's like, interpersonal conflict does some good. Well, clearly Ransom would not approve of Gene Roddenberry's vision of Star Trek where interpersonal conflict is gone. He definitely wouldn't approve of that. But it is like that's also such a Ransom thing to do. No, annoy Meono. I think that's more what he's doing than anything. But it's also true. Like, who would he choose? Rank wise, probably Shaxs would be the next in line for that position. Or what's that guy's name? The guy who's like who's I probably does all the actual paperwork for Captain Freeman in Ransom. That guy actually probably would be technically the one who's next in line, but I don't think he's cut out for command. He's administration. So I can understand that. I should also mention too that that Ransom mentions to Shaxs that Freeman told him not to let him detonate the warp core, and he goes, "Oh, unless you deserve it," and then Shaxs is happy. I really just love that. And then they're sent on a mission to investigate some talking glue, slime, some kind of viscous liquidy substance. And goes to Lynn was like, "What kind of viscosity is this?" And Tendi is like, "Do they have anything nice to say?" Which is just so perfect. And they go head off for that, and that's where the show ends. It was a hot first set off, and I thought it was like they really did a good job of wrapping up the show and made it feel like a good ending. Well, if you've watched some of Steve Shive's videos talking about Star Trek and the endings and how he likes natural endings, I agree with him on that. I don't agree with him on everything, but I do agree with him on that the natural endings are good. The Cerritos did this, probably its most crazy stunt of all, and while only one character is moving off, I would still say it's a natural ending because of which character is moving off. Captain Freeman is moving off. That changes everything on the ship. And it's also a good setup if they want you to tell more shows with these characters. Definitely the thing with Starbase 80. Yes, I could be they could do a Deep Space Nine type of show, but that also would allow potential a Star Trek What If show, like what Marvel has done and what I really want Star Wars to do. So that is a possibility they set up, and there will be at least one familiar character involved. Actually, a couple, because the entire William Boimler and his entire crew of Harry Kims and T'Pol and one Meono. Oh, and let's not forget Dr. Garrick and holographic Dr. Bashir. I still can't get over that. Just how they did that, and somehow it works. So they got that set up. That's definitely sequel bait that they could easily do a show with, and I see that as a more likely show than what the other sequel bait is the new missions of Cerritos, which definitely could work, and I would love to see that. It's like I said, it's definitely sequel bait. They even mentioned hopefully this doesn't turn into a 5-year mission, especially when Ransom reveals what he wants his thing to be when they go to warp, which Milner and Boimler was like, please not that, because it is cringe. I think he went with like hit the core or something like that. Just not good. Which would actually work pretty well with the Cerritos now that I'm thinking about it. But really, this, like I said, while there is true sequel baits at the ending, I would love to see either of those premises actually be explored in Star Trek. It still is a satisfying conclusion for the journey our lower deckers were on. They're not lower decks anymore. I said this way back in my video talking about the cancellation, was how season 5 was going to be the last season. And I mentioned they're not lower decks anymore, and they're not. Now, this episode, Ransom tells Mariner and Boimler when they say they're lower decks that no, they're in charge of the lower decks, and that's kind of true. And there's also a great thing in that montage too, where now the Cerritos strong and all that, and it was just a great heartfelt scene where we got to see a bit of every character we've seen so far, and a lot of characters had moments. Well, Livik didn't have a moment. Livik, he didn't need a moment. But like nearly every character from the past 5 seasons who have not transferred off or died, we got to see. We got to see people going into the water in cetacean ops without, any crisis situation going on. That's something that the cetacean ops officers have been asking people to do the entire show, and that was finally fulfilled in this episode. Small things like that. There's so much good closure. To talk about all that stuff would be near impossible because there's just way too much of it. But I gotta say, they did a good job ending the show. This might be one of my favorite endings of any Star Trek series to date. Except for maybe DS9. When looking back at all the season endings, Lower Decks took its most inspiration from DS9 and how to end its series. And I do think those are probably the two strongest endings of the show, because not only did it show some characters moving off, but it kind of established, that things are over, things will get back to normal, the new normal that the endings of the show have set up. That, I think, makes a really good ending because it feels natural, but if you do want to tell new stories with these characters, you have that avenue. It won't feel like a total, rehash. Like, it's like the animated series, you can pretty much have that pick up right from the original series ended, no problems. But some of the other shows, for example, Endgame with Voyager, it ends the story, but it does not feel like it sets the characters up if you want to continue. Now, we don't always have to have sequel bait, that's fine, but if you're doing a good natural ending, you'll feel satisfied with the ending, but you'll be fine getting more. And that's why I felt with both Deep Space Nine and with Lower Decks. Both of those shows, I'm satisfied with the ending, but I will not object to get any more. Some of the other shows, like, not satisfied with Enterprise despite my love of the series. I want more because I want a better ending. Same thing with Voyager. The ending is good, but it feels like it leaves the characters off and doesn't set them up. Feel like they got home and then we're like, what now? What's next? It's not satisfying as an ending. Yes, they get home, but the what next? We need that hint in that, and now that since Admiral Janeway changed the past, it's not the same ending, so we don't have that satisfaction anymore. And then, of course, TNG is actually a pretty satisfying ending because they wrapped up the Q story arc, but at the same time, it does feel like it's lacking because we only got one Q and Picard. Those are the only characters we feel any kind of ending with. But DS9 and Lower Decks, just like I said earlier, and I'll say one more time, the ending satisfies nearly every character's arc. We feel like we know that where they are and we're happy for them, but at the same time we'll be pleased and pleasantly surprised if and when we do see more of them. That is where I'm going to end my review. Stay tuned next week. I hopefully will be putting out my compilation review for all of season 5. So stay tuned for that. It might get delayed because of the holidays though, just to warn you. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on the new Next Generation in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you always.